I'm still working on it.
Yeah, we all need to follow you.
What about you, Stephanie?
I had a big birthday this year.
Very outspoken, very passionate about the things.
Why do we need this again?
I'm trying to understand. It makes no sense to me. But I'm not a Brit, so I can't.
Hey guys, it's your girl Basia, and welcome to our Ask Basia video podcast. We're just coming back from a much needed hiatus, and I can't tell you, I'm rested, I'm ready to go. I needed a break, but it became evident to me during that break that we needed to come back with a bang, and we're coming back with our new happiness series, and today we're discussing how to define happiness. And as usual, I'm joined by some amazing queens. To the top right, we got Dr. Ayana Eastman, a native of Trinidad and Tobago, who believes in the importance of pursuing your dreams. Her career path has included communications and public relations experiences with state and international agencies, such as the United Nations. At present, she's an assistant professor of communication and a single mother to a tenacious 14-year-old girl. An avid writer, she shares her thoughts and musings on motherhood, singleness, dating, and more on her blog, Successful Mom. So go follow her. In her spare time, she hikes mountain trails and plans events. And most of all, she wants us to know she's a woman of God. We're also joined by, again, Dr. Sadell Ross, Trinidadian American, an anesthesiologist and pain specialist who currently practices palliative medicine. She's also a classically trained vocalist who uses music to care for terminally ill patients. Living with threatening illnesses and patients living with threatening illnesses as well. Dr. Ross's podcast, Prescription in Sound, is dedicated to promoting awareness of healing potential of music and is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we also want to welcome back our expert panelists for all things psycho, like today, American Dawn Thompson, MS, LPC, NCC, and one of the leading licensed professional counselors in the state of Georgia and a national certified counselor. Dawn graduated with a 4.0 GPA from Mercer University, obtaining a Master's of Science in Community Counseling, and graduated in the top 10 of her class, summa cum laude, from Spelman College, receiving a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. Her knowledge is vast, having more than 15 years of clinical experience in working with children, adolescents, adults from diverse populations. She currently works as the COO and Vice President of Hopeful Change, LLC. She's a psychotherapist in a group practice, and a clinical compliance specialist and behavioral assessment and mental evaluation manager for a local mental health agency. When she's not working hard, she's serving in the capacity as serving in the capacity as therapist. You'll find her serving her family and our surrounding communities. Ladies, welcome. Oh, that's a mouthful, but that's what you get when you invite accomplished queens. I make no apologies. My husband was saying to me, why your intro so long? I said, listen, don't mess with a woman's credibility and her worth and what she brings to the table. He's like, I'm sorry. And that's the reason, because we have to let them know we're not just here to talk. We know what we're talking about.
That's right.
So welcome. I cannot think of another way to start my happiness series by declaring that after the past year, I finally get it. And here we are. I am unapologetic. I'm a savage when it comes to my happiness. You would think that for somebody who wrote the book, that's available on Amazon, 30 Days to Lasting Happiness, you'd think that after writing such a book, I've got the remedy. Well, the truth is, I need another version of that book because that book was written before a pandemic. So within recent months, I've had to revisit my own happiness and address all things I repressed prior to the pandemic. And the first question I had to ask myself, how do I define happiness? I believe that happiness feels differently for different people, but it is the same thing. How do you ladies define happiness? Don Thompson, you are the psycho experts, so I'm starting with you.
Thank you, Miss Basha. I think, like you just said, happiness is universal, right? So when we go to different countries, and we're in the company of other people, we can tell whether people are happy or not, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of something that we see in them. But I always equate my own happiness to peace and to joy. And I always say my peace and my joy are priceless. You cannot pay for it. You cannot take it. It's something that I own and it's mine. And I take it very seriously, as you've stated for yourself.
I hear that. How about you, Dr. Siddhar Russ? How would you define happiness?
Yeah, so I would say that for me, it's a state, an emotional state, a psychological state, a spiritual state that comes from being intentional about creating the best possible life that I can create, day to day, moment to moment. Because there are times when, of course, we may feel a little down, we may feel sad, we may feel upset. But it's about happiness gives me that ability to bounce back, right? So it's really about doing my best day by day, moment by moment, to create and live the best possible life, regardless of the circumstances in which I might find myself, right? So it's about being grateful for what I have and acknowledging the fact that I've been entrusted with gifts and talents and amazing things, as we all have, right? That I can use to better my life and the lives of those around me, in a nutshell.
Well said. What about you, Dr. Eastman, Dr. Yana Eastman? I can't wait to hear how you define happiness.
So it is similar to what has been said in terms of Dr. Ross saying happiness is a state, the one talking about the joy, right? The peace and the joy. Definitely happiness is a state, right? It's a feeling at a particular time. But joy, something that you have that is constant, right? That does not depend on your state or what's happening around you. And to me, in a word, happiness is service. It's deference, giving in to people, and to not thinking of yourself as highly. You know, and I must say, this is something that I'm still learning, because trust me, when I look, like simple thing, day-to-day scenario, family around, they're frustrating, you wish you would go away, why do they do the same things over and over again, like what? But then when they go away and you're by yourself, you're like thinking, what do I do now? I wish they were here, right? So really, you know, to me, happiness is at this point in my life about service, about giving, about just putting myself back, you know, taking me back and putting others before me.
I don't know if I agree with you, because that has caused me major unhappiness. But what I love about this program is that, you know, we're all queens and we could agree to disagree without causing a scene, correct?
Absolutely.
Correct.
But I don't know. But, you know, for me, happiness is a state of mind that goes along sometimes with a feeling. So they don't always connect. But I think, as Dr. Russ said, it being happy allows you, having a happy state of mind allows, when your feelings go low, to reconnect. You can bounce back and you can pick yourself up because you're a happy person. But I would define happiness for me as doing what I love, when I want, where I want, with who I want, whenever I want. That's what I define happiness as. And because I don't want to go into to what Dr. Eastman said, because I'm sure she will continue to, lay her case down. But I wanted to talk about how important happiness is to living, because until you experience happiness, you're actually not living. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. You're alive, but you're not living. And I remember thinking when I was a young college student doing my first degree, I felt that once I was able to graduate and get a big job and make money, I would be happy for the rest of my life. How pathetic I was. And so I also thought that, and when I realized, because now I'm a woman in these streets for some time, I realized that is indeed not correct. And I said, shoots, how they robbed us. You pay so much money for university and you leave there with a certificate, really very naive, not realizing that some of the things that you need the most in our teaching in the classrooms. So for the university's professors on the panel, can you please tell your deans?
It's like when in the forest, they ask the ugliest person to wash the wares and the monkey jump. But why they always calling me? Right? Okay. Yes.
No, we need universities to teach a course on happiness, budgeting, investing, because you cannot assume because you have a big job, it means that you know how to invest. And it means that you know how to be happy.
Correct.
Because when I discovered the things that actually made me unhappy, by the time I discovered it, I realized it had nothing to do with my fancy degrees. And that's all I wanted to say. Dr. Russ, how you feel about that?
I agree with you. I mean, for a long time, as a child, in my adolescence, early adulthood, I really believed that once I had achieved the MD, that I would be happy, that all would be well with my life. There would be no more issues, and I would just sail through life. And yeah, just everything would be honky-dory for the rest of my life. I would feel so accomplished and fulfilled. It would be the greatest ever, right? I would have no need for anything else. It would be perfect.
My beautiful home and fancy cars.
How wrong was I? I was actually brought to my knees within 3 years of having completed my training. Brought to my knees just in agony because I was so unhappy.
Yeah.
And I think society has fed us for a long time this myth, this fable, this untruth that the more money you earn, the happier you're going to be.
Absolutely.
More money, more problems.
Yeah, in every aspect of your life, especially in the ways that really count, like your spiritual health, your emotional well-being. Those are the real problems that often come along.
Your background, your upbringing.
Oh gosh. So I had to learn that lesson. I had to pull away, and I eventually ended up, in a nutshell, just to summarize, I was no longer prepared to sacrifice my happiness for money.
I hear that.
And so I shifted gears, made some significant changes, earning less money now than I was at that time, but my happiness and my sense of well-being and my satisfaction with my life is off the scale, off the chart.
Off the chart. I hear that. And congrats to you, sister, for knowing who you are and knowing.
It was a struggle.
Before I go to Dr. Eastman, because I know she itching there in the forest.
It was a struggle.
It comes back to what I said. It's about loving what you do, doing what you love, when you want, where you want, wherever you want, with who you want. Okay.
No question. I had to come to that realization.
I think I should have added for less money. Moving right along, Dr. Eastman.
Yes, so I agree with some of the stuff that's said, because you know what, that whole thing about, I get it, reaching to a stage in life where you say, this is how much I'm willing to sell my soul for, or I'm not willing to sell my soul at all, right? But then when we think back in the times in our lives when we have done what we wanted, when we wanted, with who we wanted, and
whenever we wanted.
whenever we wanted, then that still didn't bring us happiness. So there's something else that's still missing. So what's the missing link?
Doing what you love.
Missing link?
Doing what you love, because that's where I started. When you can do what you love, whenever you want, wherever you want, with who you want, anytime you want, that's the magic. It's when you're not doing what you love because you're sabotaging your soul. That's just my humble opinion.
So murderers, right?
We're talking about purpose here. Not murder.
No, I mean, we're talking about happiness.
We're talking about purpose, not murder.
Yeah, but what is, where does this thing that we call happiness, the elusive happiness that we're searching for? And when we look at all these superstars who have the money, right? And we assume their lives are perfect because they look real good on camera, or they look real good on TikTok and Instagram. And I know I'm stepping on your toes here, but I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking,
you stop. I'm only at to tell them it's an at Basia Powell.
But right, so it's just this facade, right? So So what is it? What is it that really makes us happy?
Yes.
Right? So what is it, and how do we get there?
So perhaps our expert,
yes,
who happens to be one of the leading therapists, I'm told, I haven't been to her yet, but who happens to be one of the leading therapists in the state of Georgia. Maybe she's figured out the science and she can take us to school.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll do my best, but let's talk about a few of the things that you guys have already touched on, because I think it's very important. Happiness is electrifying, but it's also elusive, right? Like Ayana just said, it's very, very elusive. So with that thought, that's letting us know that happiness is fleeting, if you will. And when you're talking about money and you're talking about happiness and trying to equate the two, seeing if there's some type of correlation between them, you really have to think about the three things that come with happiness. And Basia, you had already said one of them, and one of them is purpose. We're talking about purpose, we're talking about passion, and we're talking about pleasure. So when we're talking about happiness, those three things are things that we kind of overall look at. What is happiness and how is it relating to those three P's, right? So when we're talking about work, we're asking ourselves, does this fulfill our pleasure? Is this something that we enjoy doing? Is this something that we like doing every single day? Is it something that keeps us fulfilled in that way? Is it purposeful? Is this something that I'm getting something out of? Is this something that is feeding me spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally? All of those things are so important. And then the last one is talking about your passion. Passion is something that is so important when we're talking about happiness, because if you are not passionate about something, it will fall to the wayside just like anything else, right? And as Sadell mentioned earlier on, intentionality is probably the most important thing when you are talking about happiness. You have to be intentional when you're talking about happiness, because it is a choice. It is not something that you just wake up with every day and you jump out of bed and you say, today is a great day and I'm happy today. It doesn't work like that, right? We all have many a days when we wake up and it's like, oh gosh, it's Monday, or oh gosh, I just want to get to the weekend. So we have to be intentional about the things that we choose to do each and every day. And one of those things is about choosing happiness, choosing joy, choosing to put ourselves in that space to be able to receive those things back from other people.
I hear that. I have to say that from where I sit, and I agree with all that you're saying. Even my dear friend, Dr. Eastman at the Chop, who I'm still leaving in the jungle, but I agree with everything you say. You're talking facts. You're all talking facts. It just feels differently to all of us, but it's really the same thing, right? I arrived at a place in my life where I just decided, because I also think it's a decision. So you can get up and not invoke this happiness like the Holy Spirit, but you can take a decision that, you know what? Enough is enough.
Absolutely.
I need to be happy. And I remember saying this to myself, and it's an ongoing discussion. You can have a good year and then the COVID comes.
Sure.
And then you have to remind yourself who you are. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a savage when it comes to my happiness, because as I like to describe myself, I'm grown and sexy, and I do not require permission from anyone to be happy. So I now have to take a decision. Whether I'll get there in 2 days or 5 is a different story. But I have to take a decision to be happy. and to be brutally honest with myself. And you know, before you can talk about how to define happiness, you for yourself, you also have to talk about be honest with yourself, brutally honest, and say, am I happy?
Absolutely.
Because you have to know what you're treating, right? So this is how I see it. And I'm like, I had to take that decision. And when you can honestly address the what and the who, it's almost like experiencing a psychological orgasm.
Mhm.
Appeal.
Appeal. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. So that's our new little catchphrase about. It's like experiencing appeal because you cannot find happiness unless you are in tune to what makes you happy. I don't know if you feel me, but Dr. Sadal Russ, are you
Yes, ma'am.
in tune in what makes your soul happy? And are you pursuing your happiness daily?
There's no question. I mean, that is
As a non-question.
that is there's not even a question.
Okay.
You know, I as I said back then in whatever, when was that? 2011, 2012, when I just broke down and had to do some serious soul searching. I had to be brutally honest with myself, to use your own expression, and to figure out what mattered most to me. What are the things that give my life a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose? What are the things that I've always enjoyed? What are the things as a child that often gave me meaning or, you know, brought joy to my life?
Mm-hmm.
And and one of those things was singing, music. Anybody who knows me would know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the decision to start practicing medicine in a way that mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that mattered to me. I didn't care about anybody else. I didn't care about the fact that I eventually learned not to care about the fact that I didn't have a degree in the performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
This was my God-given gift.
Can you
And
please
this
just
was what
define the way you're talking about? You said you started to do it in a way that matters to you. Can you
Yes.
enlighten our viewers?
Sure. In a way, so I, as a physician, I had to think about a way that I could incorporate music into the care of my patients. How could I deliver music? How could I offer music to my patients? And I said, you know what? The simplest way to do this is to sing at the bedside. That's
Nice.
how I started. And I created
How about a round of applause? No, that's ingenious.
Thank
That's
you.
ingenious. I mean,
It
it
is.
requires
Thank you.
bravery and autism.
Oh my gosh, and authenticity and everything else, because I struggled with that too. I remember thinking, again, in my own self-sabotaging way, oh my God, who's going to take me seriously as a singer, as a vocalist? Nobody's going to care. But this was all, you know, the negative self-chatter that tends to, you know, pervade our brains and to hold us back from living this full and meaningful life.
Yeah.
So I had to move beyond that. And once I made that step, I took that leap of faith. It made all the difference. So the bedside singing led to concerts, which led to
let's talk about that event that's coming up. That huge event
which
that's coming
led
up.
to auditions and competitions, which will lead to Carnegie Hall, a Carnegie Hall performance.
Awesome.
You see?
And it continues, and it will continue, because it has to continue. It has to not only feed me, but feed those around me and lead to the greater good. So it's only just begun, folks.
Because you're
It
doing
has
what you
only
love.
just begun.
Because you're doing what you love. You're feeding your soul.
Yes.
Yeah?
That's right.
Before I move on, anybody has anything that they want to add to that? I guess not. So
that was deep. That
was deep. I mean, who can follow up on that?
I mean, it really just didn't seem that deep to me. And for, again, a long time, I was just, you know, downplaying and discrediting myself and my talents and my abilities.
Coming from a medical doctor. Yeah.
So nobody is exempt. You just have to be intentional about the life that you want to create.
And I think you have to intentionally surround yourself with people who are genuine about your happiness and who are happy themselves.
That's part of the process also.
Because as women, we don't know, especially women of color. I mean, sometimes I say this, and I don't want my other sistrins on the lighter hue, but to think that I'm exempting anybody. I'm not. It's just that my experience is unique to my persona, and we've been taught to discredit our achievements. I have not met a sister who feels that what she's done is enough. Right. She could have like 4 doctorates. I just have not met a sister. All of you all here who's so accomplished, right? We collectively we have more degrees than what's outside now right now, But any one of us, you have to force us into the submission of admitting that you've done enough.
Yeah. So can I just say something here? So my father said something the other day, which I thought was interesting. He said, I'm one of the few persons he knows who uses almost all their talents at the same time. Right? And I thought that was a huge compliment.
Coming from your dad.
Coming from my dad.
That was amazing.
And, I just never thought about it. And think about it here, for all of us here as women, and back to what Basia said, sometimes we think that if we use those talents and abilities that we're going to maybe like make someone else feel bad, or you might think that, maybe it might be good enough, like Sidel mentioned. But really and truly, if, everyone has different talents. So it just so happens that if someone else has 1, you have 10, or we have 10. But because we're using all 10 doesn't mean that we are better than anyone else. It just means that we're using the talents that God gives us, and we are still able to function and be happy and be in a good place.
That's right.
So I really want to just acknowledge, what Sidel is doing, what Dawn is doing, what Basia is doing, just using all of your talents, not hiding it, but using it in a way that brings you joy.
Sorry to cut you, but I have to say this as we move on to the other side of our topic, but I don't know. I've written something on this. It's like we all came from different religious backgrounds or spiritual backgrounds, however you choose to address it. But as women, we seem to have read the same Bible. I have a friend from Trinidad many years ago. I haven't seen her in years, and she likes to say, I have to small up myself, right? And it's a slang, but it means it says what it is. Why should women, which is why I read those intros at the top of our podcast, why should women feel the need to small up themselves?
Right. Yeah.
And to be grammatically correct, to reduce themselves to make somebody else feel. If you have to small up yourself to make another person feel good, you need to leave that environment.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah. Mind you, you should be humble enough in your elevated state to help others up. But if they are so threatened by you, you're hanging around the wrong people.
That's very correct.
My aha moment came during the pandemic when was when I acknowledged during my therapy, as I told you all, I had to seek therapy during that time, that I never had anyone show up for me emotionally prior to meeting my husband. That was an aha moment. You're like, but you're a grown woman, realize I never had the time to think about the fact that all of my life prior to that, no one showed up. So in other words, I realized that I was coming up short. I was giving the people who meant the most to me, and this is connected to happiness. In other words, I wasn't happy. And with that feeling, and with being someone on the unhappiness spectrum and not knowing it, I was drained about everything and anyone and everyone. The issues happening outside my home. I was drained by everything and everyone. And I was bringing the issues inside my home to the people who loved me the most and who were making me the happiest. And because I was not accustomed to happiness, I just didn't even know that was going on with me. There are a lot of people, they don't realize what's going on with them. And even if happiness is staring them in their face, they can't recognize it.
That's right.
because they have never felt it.
Mm.
You know, that realization made me sad. I never felt emotional security in my life before I met my husband. And I said to myself at the time, I'm like, but this person deserves, this person is bringing everything to me. What am I bringing emotionally? And this person deserves my best. And I had to and he didn't even know that was a self-talk going on in my head, because he, in his own wisdom, he never said to me, hey, you know what? You're not bringing this. You're not doing that. Are you happy? No, he don't use those words, right? It was me being honest, brutally honest with myself, trying to find my way back to happiness, saying something doesn't feel right here. And I couldn't put the term together until I went for therapy that I never had an emotional blanket. So it's stopped me from being truly happy in my life until I came to that realization and went after it. My question is, did any of you experience an aha moment when it, with regards to happiness, specifically during the pandemic? And, or am I the only one? Let's go with Dr. Eastman, and then we go to, no, actually, let's go with Downtown Seth.
To be totally honest, Basia, I have a similar experience to you in referencing the emotional blanket, right? I had a bad case of being a people pleaser in my life, right? And that was something that was a chronic issue that I had. And I didn't really know that I was a people pleaser until I matured in life, like you guys were speaking of previously, how we think that we fulfill all these accomplishments in life and get degrees and get homes and buy new cars, and we have all of these possessions, right? And it makes us feel like we've done something. Well, when in reality, nothing of those possessions fulfill your happiness inside. So I was doing a lot of people pleasing in my life and a lot in my younger years. And when I met my husband, I started to see people and see things differently, because when it's you and you're in it, you don't see what's going on around you, right? Because it's you, you kind of have the blockade up covering you from seeing what other people see. Mm-hmm. So I would have to agree with you in that respect, that those were some things that I had to realize for myself, and to start putting myself first in ways that people didn't necessarily like. People were kind of cut off because I made decisions in my life that you were not bringing me happiness. I realized that you were bringing more anger and more frustration, and not showing up as your best self to the table. And when people don't show up as their best self, it makes it very difficult to create sound and trusting relationships. And it's important to have trusting relationships when you're being vulnerable about these things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, right? We want to make sure that we're able to trust our inner circle of people. And I've realized as I've gotten older that my circle is very, very small. It's very, very, very small. And that's purposeful. I do that on purpose and with intent, because I realize I don't need the extras. I don't need the extra friends. I don't need the extra commentary. I don't need the extra 2 cents. I can do what I need to do and get that fulfilled with my small circle of people. But to focus on the actual pandemic, I think it kind of just brought me back to a place of realizing what was important. Everything was so fast paced and just go, go, go all the time. So it allowed me more time with my kids, more time with my husband. That allowed me to kind of recenter and refocus kind of the direction that I wanted to go in life. So there were some things that occurred during the pandemic that I would say that kind of jolted me in a different direction concerning happiness and what was fulfilling at that point in time.
Yeah, just a follow up for you, because you are the expert at this, and in your practice as a leading therapist in the state of Georgia, would you say that the source of most mental dysfunction we experience as human beings is as a result of not feeling loved and accepted?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we are having a huge increase. Not I think, but we have had a huge increase in suicidal ideations and suicide attempts, and actual commits of suicide since the pandemic has occurred. So absolutely. I mean, I think it goes without saying that depression and anxiety increased at the onset of the pandemic for several reasons that had started because of the pandemic, that people weren't necessarily dealing with those stressors before the pandemic started. So absolutely, I think love and acceptance is something that we all need. It's something that we all desire. It's something that we all want fulfilled. We all want to feel like we belong to somebody and something. It's just a natural tendency. It's a natural feeling that we have. So yes, in a short answer, absolutely. To answer your question, I do feel so.
Okay. Dr. Eastman, to answer the question at hand, did you have an aha moment with regards to your happiness, with regards to the way you see happiness during the pandemic?
Oh yeah, I think that the pandemic allowed me to recenter, refocus, and reminded me that we don't need much in life other than the people we love and the basics: food, air, water, right? Because you realize every time you leave the house, you spend money.
Yeah.
And the pandemic, I mean, like, you just had, the money didn't matter because you didn't have to spend it because you couldn't, right? All you had to do was spend time with your family, find things for them to eat. And even during that process, whatever you ate was great because you were with them. So I think it allowed me at least to shed the things that were unwanted and unnecessary in my life.
Yeah.
And really allowed me to let go of some things I've been holding on to, especially spiritual struggles, things that you may have been, that I was, maybe holding on to and praying for and wanting my life to go a particular way. And, God was saying something else.
Yeah.
So the pandemic it was, we would say, this catastrophe that happened, but God knows that for each and every person alive, and I know we lost a lot of lives during the pandemic, that there was a purpose and a reason. So I definitely see life differently. It caused me during that time, I literally moved from Connecticut to Tennessee. Change, something I would have never considered.
Wow.
Life
is short.
Right. So, life, you just saw what was important and what was not.
All right, I got that. Dr. Ross, as a medical doctor, have you seen a correlation between happiness and the health of your patients? A direct correlation. I don't know if you have to measure that.
Certainly, yes. So yes. Well, let me just put something into context. I mean, I take care of very sick people, right? Hospice and palliative medicine is essentially caring for people who are living with chronic life-threatening illnesses.
Yeah. And can I clarify my question, therefore, since you've said that? So maybe you may not have the opportunity, but I'm hoping that you may, with a few, to hear about what their life has been like.
With all of them.
Right. So that's the correlation that I'm trying to determine.
So with all of them, I mean, that's a big part of my assessment of my patients. When I meet them for the very first time, one of the things that we talk about is what has always been a great source of meaning and what has brought purpose and joy to their lives. So that even though they may be living with a life-threatening illness, cancer, heart failure, lung disease, I found that the patients who are able to identify the things that have brought meaning and purpose to their lives still have a better quality of life in spite of the circumstance than those patients who have lived a life in which they have not or had not had for whatever reason, the opportunity to identify the things that they truly enjoy and that they are passionate about and give their lives a sense of meaning and purpose. So absolutely.
Absolutely. I believe, I mean, as I said, not simply because I'm the author of a book on happiness, but I wrote that book after being diagnosed with breast cancer and acknowledging that there was so much pain that I carried and I needed to detox and find happiness prior to taking chemotherapy and so on. And I believe that there's nothing sexier in a man or woman than a happy man and a happy woman. Like you can have the sexiest person alive, but worst personality. They're so unhappy, and they're going to become a burden. After a while, you're going to just see them as ugly, you know?
Yep.
And to me, my marriage is always popping when mommy and papi popping inside of here because, you know, everybody's getting along. I mean, and not that we don't get along, but one of us might be experiencing unhappiness and it just don't feel the same. But if everybody's happy, you can have put a marriage aside, you can have a friend, a friendship, you know, your best friend. And when everybody's happy, it's an energy like no other. You feel me?
Absolutely.
So to me, happiness is everything. I recently developed, and I wanted to share this with you ladies, a happiness firewall. I was forced to do it, but you know those firewalls that block.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had one, that gas tank company in Texas would not have had hackers.
Hacking, yeah.
So I'm like, newsflash, nobody is allowed to hack my happiness. Tell everybody, okay? And this is my firewall list. No, I'm serious, because you gotta survive in these streets. If you don't do that, you know, this is why at the top of the podcast, I didn't exactly agree with what Dr. Eastman said about opening yourself, and because that didn't work for me. And our expert therapist on our panel, Dawn Thompson, touched on it, where she had to cut back because you can't open yourself to everybody. My happiness comes from opening myself to the people that brings me happiness as well. Because birds of a feather flock together in my mind. Yeah. And unhappiness is contagious. So now I have had to, and I learned this from experience, you know, not that I'm trying to cross Dr. Eastman today, but I learned from experience, right? Being in the jungle, right? So no, but seriously, so I developed this happiness firewall. And if I have to maintain happiness, to maintain good health, I would have to enforce some boundaries. So these are you know, before we close up, I want to talk about this really important because it might help somebody. I have this list. Don't call me to tell me anything negative. That's my new list for 2021 and beyond. Well, and I mean, somebody's dying is not negative. That's sad. But don't call me to bring me down. Call me to bring me up because I'm bringing you up too, right? So once you're calling me, don't call me to tell me negative nonsense, right? I have no time to argue with anyone. If it affects my anxiety levels, once you're confrontational, it's a wrap. I'll talk to you next 20 weeks. This is also another important thing to me. As a busy wife, mom, and entrepreneur, I need to make time to do something for me. So with the support of Dr. Russ, I've started to play golf.
Oh, wow.
We're out there on those greens.
I'm out there on those greens. You know, if you want to catch me outside, how about that? Because I just realized when I was writing my firewall and my happiness list that I wasn't doing anything for me. I was doing for everybody. Dr. Eastman, I was of service to everybody except me. So I was like, what am I going to do about this? And I started doing that. And you know what was interesting? Because I've always loved golf. I just don't like the sun. I played one time in Barbados with my husband, and I suck at it, and I still suck at it. But that's not the issue. But that's not, I'm not going there to be Tiger Wolf or Tigress Wolf. I'm out there. You see, Dawn Thompson, when I'm on that ball, when I'm focusing on that ball, everything disappears.
That's right.
All I want to do is hit that ball.
That's all that matters.
It's the most amazing thing. I'm like, why nobody didn't tell me? I have my girlfriend Kim who always say, you need to do this, you need to pick. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the sun. Yo, I forget about the sun when I'm trying to hit that ball.
And you can protect yourself from the sun. The sun is a small thing.
You know, and I suck at golf. But you know, so for me, I had to establish my firewall, and my advice to everybody, because you know, different things make us tick, is I became someone who, in running for my own unhappiness, everybody became a project, and before you know, you're helping everybody, and I'm out there buying happiness and trying to make people happy who could never be happy because they don't even know how to define it. So firewall up, no hackers allowed. Don't call me, I'll call you. I'm on the golf course. How about that? No, and I might sound like I'm laughing, but I'm serious, because happiness in the workplace is also another story, and I think Dr. Russ touched on that, because she chose the happiness and left the huge pay packet behind.
Yeah.
You know, What do you think that happiness is more important than money in the workplace, Dr. Eastman?
Oh, definitely not. I'm a teacher, right? So no, obviously not. Right? I know that the students seem to think professors make the big bucks, but it depends on which school you're at and so on. So definitely not. No. I love teaching.
Yeah.
I love being among students. I love to see just the light in a student's eye. And it's not just about what I teach them, but just even that reasoning process. And I tell them all the time that students who do best in the class are not the brightest, are not the brightest students, right? They're not the brightest. They're the ones who follow the rules and who follow the guidelines and the syllabus. What I would love to teach you is how to reason from point A to B to C to D. That's what I would love. And granted, there's some students who think like A to Z to P to F, right? There's some of those, right? And I'm actually a lateral thinker, so I understand where that comes from. But I love my job.
So it's about the happiness for you, not the money.
Definitely not the money.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's not the money because they can't pay me enough to sit down here and talk to all you queens. They don't pay me enough for this. Like $0, you know. So
So I think
but that's nice. Yeah, but it's. I mean, I feel you, Dr. Eastman. I was. It was really a blow. It was a blow to me. It was a blow when I realized that, oh my gosh, I didn't have this in perspective at all. I didn't have it.
Nobody taught it in the classroom. So Professor, talk to me. This is what I love about this podcast. We're global. We get to sit here, queens, and just pull up and from different parts of the world and talk about whatever we need to discuss that wasn't taught us, things that we didn't think mattered, but they matter now. You know, the world is changing. And I just like to tell everybody before we wrap up, where my queens are at. Dr. Ayana Eastman, where you at?
So I am in Tennessee, down south. So most people, when we think of Tennessee, we think there's no people of color there. But no, actually, there are a lot of people. Chattanooga is one of the most diverse cities in the United States. And so far, so good. It's definitely a mind-opening experience for me. It's a beautiful state. I know Basia has been there at some point as well.
Yeah, I lived there for a year.
So I definitely moved from the Northeast, the quote-unquote liberal, to the more conservative.
Welcome to the South. Welcome to the South. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it because I think this is the only way for me to grow. I mean, God allowed me to be there in the North for a time, and now I'm here. And I know He has a plan.
Well, yes, ma'am. Welcome to the South. And what about you, Dawn Thompson? Where you at? Tell the people.
I'm in Georgia.
Georgia
Peach.
Georgia Peach, yeah?
That's right.
Where you at, Dr. Ross?
So I am in the Garden State, the state of New Jersey.
Jersey girl.
Nice and green and lush, especially these days. I'm just outside of
soaking in the sun.
of the Empire State of Manhattan, NYC, right? So we're just across the bridge, and NYC is back. Let me tell you all.
I can't wait to go to New York City. I never thought I would say this. Like, I can't wait to go to New York. Like, my husband is like, why you want to go to New York? I said, just to say I'm going to New York, you know, because you never know you miss something until you can't do it, right?
NYC is back, baby.
Yes,
baby. You know, post-COVID.
Yeah.
And I am really, really excited. I mean, you could feel the vibe. You just feel the excitement. People are back out there, and I'm ready to experience and enjoy all of it.
Well, this is what I love about this podcast. We have amazing women. You don't know who's pulling up, but all you know is that they're going to be fabulous and they're going to be from somewhere in the world, you know. And before we go, I want to sound off on our latest wild card section, our hot topic. Dr. Eastman, in a few words, what are you sounding off on today?
I'm sounding off on vaccines being available to smaller countries like our native Trinidad and Tobago. They've been having quite a struggle, and now there are more vaccines being available. Granted, there are some challenges with the rollout, but I am glad that there's some progress being made. I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's been rough for some time for Trinidad and Tobago, which is also my home country, in terms of getting vaccines. So we're glad that they're pushing along because it's tough. Yeah. What about you, Dawn Thompson? What are you sounding off on today?
I am sounding off on exercise. I want people to understand and realize and know that all it takes is 30 minutes a day. I know there are so many fads out there in the world right now in reference to what you need to be doing to stay fit and stay healthy. But honestly, if you just give yourself 30 minutes a day,
Yes,
you will feel so much better. It is a complete mood booster. If you are not having such a great day and you kind of need to get your energy levels up, exercising is a great way to do that. And all it takes is 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes.
And I agree with that. I agree with that. What about you, Dr. Russ? What are you sounding off on today?
Okay, so on the subject of mood boosters, my big thing this time of the year, apart from my golf and tennis, gardening, right? Woo. Getting in the garden, getting down in there, digging in there, right? And I have my daughters involved in that as well.
Yes.
You know, because, and it's something that I've done for a number of years. But this year with the pandemic, and they highlight on food insecurity, food deserts, the fact that so many of our people went without food really struck me, really hit home. I worked in a food pantry for a while, and my jaw dropped when I realized how many people were hurting and in need of just basic food supplies.
The things we take for granted.
And so I really, that's my thing. Like this season, I'm getting in my garden. I want to start partnering with other local gardens and local gardeners to try to make healthy produce, healthy food available to as many people as possible. So that's my thing. And just to get the word out there that, we can create food supplies. We can create, food chains. We can create these opportunities to make food, healthy food available for people in our communities, and everybody can get involved.
I hear that. Okay, well, I'm not so serious like you ladies today. I am sounding off on the Kardashians leaving television. It's sad. I've been riding with the Kardashians for.
I know it's true. Yes.
Day one. I'm like day one. I've been through all their faces, all their bodies, all their guys, all their husbands. I've been a loyalist, So it was like the closing of a curtain, the closing of an era. Their final episode was they're coming back, right? But their final episode was last Thursday, and it was a little bittersweet, and I guess it was bittersweet for Kanye too, because he stopped following every one of them after the episode, after his birthday, after they announced he's a new girl. Anyway, this is girls gotta watch her little reality to relax and find happiness, Anyways. On a serious note, I would like everybody to follow all our commentators on IG. Dr. Eastman is a successful mom, and you can find all of their links in the body of the article associated with this podcast and Basia blog. And Dr. Cyril Ross is at Cyril Ross MD, as well as the same tag for her website. All of that is in this article. And Dawn Townsend is at Hope for Change. Oh, hopeful change. Help me. Sorry.
Change hopeful.
Change hopeful. Oh,
yes.
See, I'm watching too much reality TV. It's backwards. So change hopeful, but it's not backwards. It's very correct in our article. So you can go into the article associated with this podcast to follow these queens, drop in their facts. And today, we've gone over time, but I just want to say thank you. This is what happens when we come together to spit facts. It's all, we always have a good time when we go over time. So I wish I could chat more with you ladies, but all good things have to come to an end. And this is the reason we created this podcast. As women, we have an obligation to lift each other up instead of we being taught to treat each other badly. And we're not doing that anymore. So take care of your pain so you can prioritize your happiness. I've never seen a happy person in pain. When you are maintaining happiness, you are truly living. It's one thing to be alive, and it's another thing to be living. Remember to be careful what you say about each other, because it takes one to know one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It's your girl, Basia. Until next time, we're continuing with happiness. See you next week. Bye. Ciao.